The emergency room doors exploded open at 9:12 a.m., and what followed wasn't medicine. It was carnage, dressed in scrubs. 7 bodies, all critical. A construction crane collapse 4 blocks away had turned steel into shrapnel, and now the victims were bleeding out faster than anyone could count. The attending surgeon was stuck in traffic. The senior residents froze like statues. And in the middle of it all stood Ava Mercer, 28, supposedly 6 months out of nursing school, hands steady as iron, while everyone else shook. She moved like gravity didn't apply to her, like she'd seen worse. Like this wasn't chaos. It was Tuesday. 3 chest tubes inserted before anyone blinked. A field tourniquet on a severed artery that should have killed a man 2 minutes ago. And when the last heartbeat stabilized, when the 7th patient gasped back into existence, the FBI walked in and asked for her by name. If you want to see how a woman dismissed as a rookie nurse became the most dangerous person in the room, stay with me until the very end. Like this video, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. And buckle up, because what you think you know is about to shatter. The blood pooled faster than anyone expected. Ava Mercer stood in the center of it, her hands slick with someone else's life, and didn't blink. Around her, the emergency department of Redfield General had turned into a slaughterhouse. 7 patients, all critical. The construction crane that collapsed on Mercer Avenue had sheared through steel and bone alike, and now the aftermath was here, screaming, bleeding, dying. "Where the hell is Dr. Callahan?" someone shouted. "Stuck on the bridge," another voice answered, breathless. "Traffic's gridlocked." Ava didn't wait for permission. She grabbed a scalpel from the nearest tray and moved to the first gurney. A man in his 40s, chest caved in, breathing in short, wet gasps. His lung had collapsed. Maybe both. She didn't need an X-ray to know that. She'd seen it before. Too many times. "Get me a chest tube kit," she said, her voice calm, almost bored. The nurse beside her, Sharon Reeves, 40-something, 20 years in the ER, stared at her like she'd spoken Latin. "You're not authorized. Now." Sharon hesitated, then moved. Ava's hands were already prepping the site, fingers tracing ribs like she was reading Braille. She made the incision without drama, without hesitation, and slid the tube in with the kind of precision that didn't come from textbooks. The man's breath evened out. His stats climbed. He'd live. She moved to the next patient before anyone could process what just happened. This one was worse. A woman, mid-30s, impaled through the abdomen by a piece of rebar that somehow hadn't killed her yet. The metal was still in her. Pulling it out would start a bleed they couldn't control. Leaving it in would kill her slower. Ava's eyes flicked to the monitors, to the woman's pupils, to the angle of the entry wound. "We need to stabilize the object and get her to surgery," Dr. Klein said from across the room. He was the senior resident on duty, tall, competent, and currently drowning in patients he couldn't save fast enough. Ava didn't argue. She grabbed sterile packing and began building a framework around the rebar, her movements efficient, almost mechanical. Klein watched her for a second too long. "You've done this before," he said. "Nursing school covers a lot," Ava replied without looking up. "Not this." She didn't answer. The woman was stable now. Ava moved again. The 3rd patient was seizing. Grand mal. His body arced off the table, foam at his lips, eyes rolled back. Someone was fumbling with a dose of lorazepam, hands shaking so badly the syringe nearly fell. Ava took it from them without a word, checked the dose by muscle memory, and pushed it into the IV line with steady pressure. The seizing stopped within seconds. She rolled him onto his side, checked his airway, made sure he wouldn't aspirate if he vomited. "Pupils reactive," she said to no one in particular. "Likely traumatic brain injury. Get a CT ordered." A medical student standing nearby just stared at her. "How did you move?" Ava said, not unkindly. The kid stepped aside. The 4th patient had a compound fracture. Femur snapped clean through, bone jutting out at an angle that made even the seasoned nurses look away. The wound was already showing signs of infection, red streaks creeping up the thigh. Ava grabbed irrigation supplies and started flushing the site, her face a mask of concentration. She worked fast, cleaning out debris, applying a temporary splint that would hold until orthopedics could get down here. "You're going to be okay," she told the patient, a construction worker named Eddie, who kept crying and asking if he'd lose his leg. Am I? Eddie gasped. Yes, Ava said. No hesitation, no doubt, just certainty. Eddie believed her. The fifth patient made her pause. A teenager, 17, maybe 18, with a depressed skull fracture. Blood trickled from his ear. His pupils were unequal. Ava's chest tightened in a way she didn't let show on her face. This kid looked like someone she used to know, someone who didn't make it home. Mercer, Klein called from across the room. I need you on 6. She forced herself to move. The sixth patient was coding. Flatline, no pulse. Ava was on him before the crash cart arrived. Hands locked, compressions deep and fast. Someone else was bagging him. Someone else was charging the defibrillator. But Ava was the one who brought him back. 30 seconds of CPR, one shock, and his heart kicked in again like it had just been waiting for permission. The seventh patient was the strangest. A man in his 50s, barely conscious but agitated, kept trying to sit up, kept trying to talk. His words came out garbled, half-formed, but one kept repeating, checkpoint, checkpoint, checkpoint. Ava pressed him back down, gentle but firm. You're safe. You're in a hospital. His eyes focused on her just for a second, and something flickered there. Recognition, maybe. Or confusion. Then he slumped back, unconscious again. By the time the last patient's vitals stabilized, the room had gone quiet, in that specific way that follows chaos. Everyone still breathing hard, still processing, still not quite sure what just happened. Ava peeled off her gloves. Her scrubs were drenched. Her hands were steady, blood smeared across her forearms. She looked like she'd been through a war. And then the doors opened again. 2 men in dark suits, federal badges clipped to their belts. They moved like they owned the space, eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. Ava Mercer? The taller one said. She turned slowly. That's me. We need to talk. Klein stepped forward, positioning himself between Ava and the agents. She just saved 7 lives. Whatever this is, it can wait. The agent didn't look at him. No, it can't. Ava met his eyes, and something shifted in her expression, something cold, something that didn't belong on a rookie nurse. Let's talk outside. They didn't go far, just into the hallway, away from the blood and the stares. The shorter agent closed the door behind them. The taller one, Agent Hayes, according to the badge, folded his arms. He had the kind of face that didn't give anything away, all hard lines and careful neutrality. Those procedures you just performed, he said. You weren't trained for that. People learn fast when lives are on the line, Ava said. Not that fast. She didn't respond. Hayes tilted his head. We ran your file. Standard background check. It came back clean. Almost too clean. Is that illegal? No, but the 5-year gap is interesting. Ava's expression didn't change. I took time off, traveled. Where? Europe, Asia, around. Doing what? Finding myself. She said it with just enough sarcasm to sound dismissive, but not enough to sound defensive. The shorter agent, Agent Ruiz, pulled out a tablet and turned it toward her. On the screen was a photo, not recent. Ava, 5 years younger, in different clothes, different hair, standing in front of a military transport vehicle. The background was desert. The look in her eyes was harder, sharper, like she'd seen things that couldn't be unseen. This was taken in Kandahar, Ruiz said, 6 years ago. You were listed as part of a special operations medical unit, off the books. High clearance missions only. Ava looked at the photo, then back at him. That's not me. Dental records match. Fingerprints match. Then your system's wrong. Hayes leaned in. 3 years ago, you were declared dead. Official report said IED, no body recovered. Looks like I got better. This isn't a joke. I'm not laughing. The hallway felt smaller now. Somewhere behind them, machines beeped. A nurse walked past, glanced at the agents, kept moving. Ava didn't move, didn't blink. She had the posture of someone who'd stood in worse hallways with worse people asking worse questions. You were erased, Hayes said. Officially. Your records, your service, your existence, gone. And now you show up here, 6 months into a nursing job, pulling off trauma procedures that most surgeons would hesitate on. So I'll ask again, who are you? Ava's jaw tightened. For a moment, just a flicker, something cracked in her composure. Then it was gone. "I'm a nurse," she said. "I did my job. If that's a crime, arrest me." Ruiz and Hayes exchanged a look. Hayes pulled out his phone, typed something, waited. His screen lit up. His expression shifted. Not surprise, exactly. More like confirmation of something he didn't want to be true. "You're flagged," he said quietly. "Active file. Federal protection status. Someone very high up wants to know the second you surface." "Then they know," Ava said. "Yeah, they do now." Before anyone could say more, the ER doors burst open again. This time it wasn't patients, it was Doctor Callahan, late, flustered, still pulling on his coat. He looked around at the organized chaos, at the patients who were stable when they shouldn't be, at Ava standing in the hallway with 2 federal agents. Callahan was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the kind of reputation that made younger doctors shut up when he entered a room. "What the hell happened?" he demanded. Klein appeared behind him. "She happened." Callahan's eyes narrowed. "Mercer?" "She ran the room," Klein said. "Alone, for 20 minutes, and everyone's alive." Callahan turned to Ava, and for a second there was something like suspicion in his gaze. Or maybe fear. He was old enough to recognize competence that didn't fit the resume. "We'll talk about this later." "Looking forward to it," Ava said flatly. The agents didn't leave. They stayed in the hallway, watching, waiting. Ava walked back into the ER, ignoring the stares, ignoring the whispers. She went to the sink, scrubbed her hands again even though they were already clean, and stared at her reflection in the metal paper towel dispenser. She looked tired. She looked normal. She looked like someone who'd been running for a long time and just got caught. Sharon approached, hesitant. "You okay?" "Fine." "That was intense, what you did." "It's what needed doing." "Where'd you learn all that?" Ava dried her hands. "School. Bullshit." Ava almost smiled. Almost. "Believe what you want." Sharon studied her for a long moment, then shook her head. "I don't know who you are, Mercer, but you're not just a nurse." "Today I was." Sharon walked away. Ava turned back to the room. The patients were stable. The crisis was over. The FBI was still in the hallway. And somewhere, in some office she couldn't see, someone was pulling a file with her name on it. A file that was supposed to stay buried. She'd been careful. For 3 years, she'd been invisible. New name, new city, new life. She'd worked low-level jobs, kept her head down, avoided hospitals because hospitals kept records. But Redfield was small enough to disappear in and desperate enough to hire someone without digging too deep. The background check had been cursory. The interview had been short. They needed bodies, and she had a pulse and a license. That was enough. Until today. Klein walked over, arms crossed. "I've been doing this for 6 years, he said. "I've never seen anyone move like you just did." "Adrenaline," Ava said. "Adrenaline doesn't teach you field medicine." She met his eyes. "You want me to apologize for saving lives?" "I want you to tell me the truth." "I did my job. That's the truth." Klein's jaw worked. He wanted to push. She could see it. But he also knew that 7 people were alive because of her, and that wasn't something you could argue with. "Callahan's going to review everything you did," he said. "If there's anything, there won't be." "You sound sure." "I am." He left. Ava stood there, alone in a room full of people, and felt the weight of it settle. She'd broken cover. Not on purpose. Not recklessly. But she'd done it. And now the clock was ticking. Every second she stayed here was another second closer to exposure, another second closer to the people who'd buried her finding out she'd crawled back out. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. "Mercer." The voice was male, calm, familiar in a way that made her blood run cold. "Who is this?" "You know who this is." She did. Colonel Marcus Hale, her old CO. The man who'd signed the order that erased her. The man who'd looked her in the eye 3 years ago and told her she was already dead, so she might as well act like it. "I'm out," Ava said quietly. "You were never in. Officially. Then why are you calling?" Because you just lit up every surveillance system we have. FBI's flagging you, Homeland's asking questions, and I've got people very interested in why a dead combat medic is running trauma codes in a civilian ER. Ava's grip on the phone tightened. I saved lives. I know. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Because the people who want you dead don't care about lives saved. They care about secrets kept, and you just became loud. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose exposure. I chose people. Hale was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost regretful. I can't protect you this time, Mercer. You're on your own. I've been on my own for 3 years. Not like this. The line went dead. Ava stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, and felt the edges of her carefully constructed life start to fray. She'd known this day might come. She'd prepared for it. But preparation didn't make it easier. She'd run scenarios in her head. What she'd do if someone recognized her. What she'd say if her cover got blown. Where she'd go if everything fell apart. But none of those scenarios had involved 7 dying people and a choice between silence and survival. Someone cleared their throat behind her. She turned. One of the patients, the 7th one, the man who'd been mumbling about checkpoints, was sitting up now, lucid, staring at her with wide eyes. His name was on the chart clipped to the end of his bed. Daniel Mora, age 53, construction foreman. Doc, he said, voice hoarse. I'm not a doctor, Ava said automatically. Yeah, you are. He squinted at her like he was trying to pull a memory out of fog. You kept us alive. In Kandahar, the convoy hit. You kept us alive. The room went very still. Ava's heart slammed against her ribs, but her face stayed blank. You're confused. Head trauma does that. No. He shook his head, more certain now. I remember. You had blood all over you. You wouldn't stop working. You told me to stay awake. You said if I closed my eyes, you'd haul me out yourself. Sharon was watching now. So was Klein. So were the agents in the hallway, suddenly very interested. Ava stepped closer, lowering her voice. You need to rest. You saved my life then too, Mora said. I never forgot your face. You're mistaken. I'm not. Hayes moved into the room now, tablet out, already pulling up files. Mr. Mora, you're saying you've met Nurse Mercer before? Not Mercer, Mora said, still looking at Ava. That wasn't the name. But it's her. I know it's her. Ruiz stepped up beside Hayes. Where was this? Afghanistan. 6 years ago. Convoy got hit outside Kandahar. IED. I was private security, escorting supply trucks. She was with the medevac team that pulled us out. She kept 3 of us alive until the chopper came. You're certain? Hayes asked. I'm certain. Ava didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood there, caught in the open, with nowhere left to run. Klein was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Sharon looked confused. The agents looked satisfied, like pieces of a puzzle had just clicked into place. Miss Mercer, Hayes said carefully, is any of that true? No, Ava said. He seems pretty sure. Head injuries cause confusion, memory blending. He's mixing me up with someone else. Your dental records and fingerprints say otherwise. Then your records are wrong. Hayes stepped closer. We can do this easy, or we can do it hard. But one way or another, you're going to tell us who you really are. Before Ava could respond, before anyone could say another word, the hospital's PA system crackled to life. Code black. Repeat, code black. All personnel, lockdown protocols in effect immediately. Ava's stomach dropped. Code black meant active threat, armed intruder, shooter, and she knew it wasn't random. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance, glass shattered, and then the shooting started. 3 gunshots, rapid, close. The sound echoed through the halls, sharp and unmistakable. People screamed. Someone hit the floor. The agents drew their weapons in one smooth motion, moving toward the sound. Klein grabbed Sharon and pulled her behind a supply cart. Ava didn't move. She stood there, frozen for just a second, because she knew what this was. They'd found her. More gunshots. Closer now.
The ER doors burst open and two security guards stumbled in, one bleeding from the shoulder, the other dragging him. "Armed men in the lobby," the uninjured guard gasped. "3 of them, maybe more. They're asking for someone. A woman." "What woman?" Hayes demanded. "I don't know. They didn't give a name. They just said she's here. They said if we don't bring her out, they'll start executing patients." Every eye in the room turned to Ava. She felt the weight of it, the stares, the fear, the accusation. This was her fault. Not directly, not intentionally, but it was hers. She'd surfaced. She'd gotten loud. And now people were going to die because of it. "How many shooters?" Ruiz asked the guard. "At least 3. Maybe 4. Tactical gear. Military-grade weapons." Hayes looked at Ava. "This is you." It wasn't a question. "Yeah," Ava said quietly. "It is." "Who are they?" "People who don't want me talking." "About what?" "About things that got a lot of people killed." Klein stepped forward, voice shaking. "What the hell did you do?" Ava finally looked at him. "I survived." Another burst of gunfire, screams from the hallway. The lights flickered again, then steadied. Ava moved on instinct, crossing to the nearest patient, the one with the compound fracture, and started wheeling his bed toward the back of the ER. "We need to get them out of the line of fire." "We need to get everyone out," Sharon said, already moving, already helping. Hayes grabbed Ava's arm. "You're not going anywhere." She looked down at his hand, then up at his face. "You want to have this argument now, while people are dying? You brought this here." "I know, and I'm going to end it." Like hell you are. You're staying put until..." The ER doors exploded inward, not from gunfire, from a breaching charge. The blast was deafening, a wall of sound and pressure that knocked everyone off balance. Smoke poured in. Through it, 3 figures emerged, masked, armed, moving with the kind of precision that came from training, real training. The lead man scanned the room, weapon up, and his eyes locked on Ava. "There you are," he said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. Ava recognized it. "Garrett," she said. He pulled off his mask. Underneath was a face she hadn't seen in 3 years, sharp features, cold eyes, a scar running down his left cheek. Garrett Finch. Former Special Forces. Former teammate. Current problem. "Hey, Doc," he said. "Long time." "Not long enough." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "We've been looking for you. Heard you made a scene today, saved some lives. Very heroic. What do you want?" "You know what I want." "I don't have it." "I think you do. I think you've had it this whole time. And I think you've been waiting for the right moment to use it." Ava shook her head. "I walked away. I didn't take anything." "Liar." One of the other men moved deeper into the room, weapon trained on Klein. "Everyone on the floor, now!" People dropped. Patients who could move did. Patients who couldn't just lay there, helpless. Ava stayed standing. "Mercer, get down!" Hayes hissed. She ignored him. Garrett stepped closer, almost conversational. "You know how this ends, right? You tell me where it is or I start putting bullets in people. Your choice." "There's nothing to tell." "Wrong answer." He turned, aimed at the nearest patient, the teenager with the head injury, and Ava's whole body went cold. "Wait," she said. Garrett paused. "I'm listening." "It's not here. It's not with me." "Where is it?" "Safe. Hidden. Somewhere you'll never find it." "Then you'll take me to it." "And if I don't?" He pulled the trigger. The shot was loud, close, and for a horrible second Ava thought he'd actually done it. But the bullet went into the ceiling, just a warning, just a reminder that he could. "Next one goes in a skull," Garrett said. "Your call, Doc." Ava's mind raced. She didn't have what he wanted. She'd never taken it. But he believed she had, which meant someone had lied to him. Someone had pointed him at her. And now she was standing in a room full of people who were about to die because of a lie. "Okay," she said. "Okay, what?" "I'll take you to it." Garrett studied her. "You're lying." "Maybe, but you'll never know unless you let me prove it." He considered that, then he nodded. "Fine, but we're taking insurance." He gestured to one of his men. "Grab the Fed." The man moved toward Hayes, but Ava stepped in his path. "No." "No?" You want me to cooperate? You don't touch anyone here. You get me. And that's it. Garrett laughed. Actually, laughed. You don't get to negotiate. Sure I do, because if you kill someone, I've got no reason to help you. And if you take a hostage, every cop in the state is going to be on you. But if you just take me, you get what you want without the heat. Garrett's smile faded. You've gotten smarter. I've had time to think. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine. Just you. But if you try anything, I start with the kid. I won't. Smart. He grabbed her arm, started pulling her toward the door. Hayes moved like he was going to intervene, but Ruiz held him back. Klein shouted something. Sharon looked terrified, and Ava let herself be dragged away because it was the only move she had left. They were almost to the door when Mora, the patient who'd recognized her, sat up. Doc, he called out. Ava looked back. You told me you'd haul me out yourself if I gave up, Mora said. You meant it then. You mean it now. Garrett yanked her forward. Touching. Let's go. They moved into the hallway, Garrett in front, the other two men flanking her. The hospital was in chaos, alarms blaring, people running, security scrambling. But Garrett and his team moved through it like ghosts, like they'd planned every step. They were halfway to the exit when the first explosion hit. Not inside the building, outside. A vehicle, maybe? The blast shook the walls, shattered windows, set off every car alarm in the parking lot. Garrett stopped, looked back at his men. What the hell was that? Don't know, one of them said. And then, through the smoke and confusion, Ava heard it. Helicopters. Not police. Not news. Military. Garrett heard it too. His expression shifted. Confusion, then anger, then something close to fear. They weren't supposed to come, he muttered. Who? Ava asked. He didn't answer. He just started moving faster, dragging her toward the exit, but the sound of the helicopters was getting louder, closer. And then the front doors of the hospital burst open and soldiers poured in. Real soldiers, not private contractors, not mercenaries. U.S. Army, full gear, weapons up. Freeze, the lead soldier shouted. Drop your weapons. Garrett's men hesitated. Garrett didn't. He pressed his gun to Ava's head. Back off, he yelled, or she dies. The soldiers didn't back off. They fanned out, covering every angle, every exit. The lead soldier, a captain, judging by the insignia, stepped forward, weapon lowered but ready. Garrett Finch, the captain said, you're surrounded. Let her go. Not a chance. This doesn't end well for you. It doesn't end well for her either if you don't back off. The captain's eyes shifted to Ava. Are you Ava Mercer? She nodded. We're here for you, he said. You're under federal protection. These men are not. Garrett laughed, bitter and sharp. Federal protection? You really think that matters? You think that's going to save her from what's coming? I think you're out of options. I think you don't know what you're dealing with. And then, before anyone could move, before anyone could react, Garrett shoved Ava forward, hard, and ran. His men followed, firing as they went, not at the soldiers, but at the ceiling, the walls, anything to create chaos. The soldiers returned fire. Glass shattered. People screamed. And Ava hit the floor, arms over her head, waiting for it to end. When the gunfire stopped, the captain was standing over her, hand extended. You okay? He asked. She took his hand, let him pull her up. Yeah. Good. We need to get you out of here. Why? Because you're not safe, and because we've got about 6 minutes before this place is swarming with people who want you dead. Who sent you? Colonel Hale. Ava's blood went cold. Hale said he couldn't protect me. He lied. The captain led her through the chaos, soldiers forming a perimeter around her, moving with the kind of efficiency that only came from real training. They exited through a side door into the parking lot, where 2 black SUVs were waiting. The helicopters overhead were circling, spotlights cutting through the smoke. Get in, the captain said. Ava hesitated. What about the people inside? They'll be fine. Local PD is on the way. Our job is you. I need to go back. I need to make sure, but you need to stay alive. Get in the car. She got in. The door slammed shut. The SUV pulled away, tires screeching, and Ava watched Redfield General disappear behind her.
She'd been there 6 months. She'd kept her head down. She'd done her job. And in one day, it had all come apart. The SUV merged onto the highway, heading north. The captain sat in the front passenger seat, talking quietly into a radio. Ava sat in the back, hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading, and tried to process what just happened. Garrett had found her. He'd come for her. He'd been willing to kill civilians to get to her, and he'd mentioned something about what she had, something she didn't actually have, which meant someone had lied. Someone had set this in motion. "Where are we going?" she asked. The captain glanced back. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting right now." Ava leaned back, closed her eyes, and let herself breathe. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running, she was being moved, and she didn't know if that was better or worse. Her phone buzzed again, same unknown number. She answered. "You okay?" Hale's voice. "You tell me." "They got you out. That's what matters." "You said you couldn't protect me." "I said I couldn't protect you there. I didn't say I was leaving you to die." "What's happening, Marcus?" "You broke cover. Word got out. And now everyone who wants you gone knows exactly where you've been hiding." "Garrett said I had something. I don't. Doesn't matter if you do or don't. They think you do, and that's enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to start a war." The line went dead again. Ava stared at the phone, then out the window at the passing landscape. They were moving fast, leaving the city behind, heading into the hills. She didn't recognize the route. She didn't know where they were taking her, but she knew one thing. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The SUV's engine hummed steady as they climbed into the mountains, each mile putting distance between Ava and the wreckage she'd left behind. She watched the city lights fade in the side mirror, replaced by darkness and the occasional flicker of headlights from cars they passed. Her hands had stopped shaking, but her mind was still moving too fast, replaying the last hour in fragments. Garrett's face, the gunshots, Mora's recognition, the soldiers pouring in like they'd been waiting for the signal. The captain in the front seat was still on the radio, voice low and clipped. She caught pieces of it. "Asset secured. En route to Blackstone. ET? 40 minutes. A pause. Understood. No contact until arrival." Ava leaned forward. "Blackstone?" He glanced back. "A facility. Off the grid. You'll be safe there." "For how long?" "Long enough to figure out what comes next." "And what does come next?" He didn't answer, just turned back to his radio. Ava sat back, frustration building. She'd spent 3 years invisible, and in one day she'd gone from ghost to cargo. People were making decisions about her life without asking her opinion, and the only reason she was still breathing was because someone higher up the chain had decided she was worth keeping alive. For now. The SUV took a sharp turn onto an unmarked road, gravel crunching under the tires. Trees closed in on both sides, thick and dark. No streetlights. No signs. Just the narrow beam of the headlights cutting through the black. After another 10 minutes, they reached a gate. Chain link, topped with barbed wire, guarded by 2 soldiers in full tactical gear. The gate rolled open without a word, and they drove through. The facility wasn't what she expected. No sprawling compound, no visible buildings, just a single structure built into the side of the mountain, concrete and steel, utilitarian and ugly. Floodlights bathed the entrance in harsh white light. More soldiers stood at the door, weapons ready but relaxed. This wasn't a place that got attacked. This was a place people didn't know existed. The SUV stopped. The captain got out first, then opened Ava's door. "This way." She followed him inside. The air was cooler here, recycled and stale. The hallway was narrow, lined with reinforced doors that had no labels, no windows, just numbers. They walked past 3 of them before the captain stopped at the 4th, swiped a keycard, and pushed it open. Inside was a room that looked like a cross between a barracks and a holding cell. A bed, a desk, a bathroom with no door. A single window, but it was frosted and reinforced. No way to see out, no way to break through. "You'll stay here until we get clearance to move you," the captain said. "Move me where?" "That's above my pay grade." "Am I a prisoner?" "You're protected." That's not an answer. He met her eyes, and for the first time she saw something close to sympathy. "Look, I don't know what you did or what you know, I just know my orders are to keep you alive. So yeah, you're staying in this room, but you're staying alive. That's more than a lot of people can say today." He left before she could respond. The door clicked shut behind him, and she heard the lock engage. Ava stood there for a moment, taking in the space. It was clean, sterile, safe, and it felt like a cage. She crossed to the bed, sat down, and let herself feel the weight of it all.
The adrenaline was gone now, leaving behind exhaustion and a dull ache in her ribs where Garrett had shoved her. She pulled off her blood-stained scrubs, balled them up, and threw them in the corner. There were clothes in the small closet, generic, military issue, but clean. She changed into them and lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come. Her mind kept circling back to the same questions. Why had Garrett come for her? What did he think she had? And who had convinced him she had it in the first place? She was still awake when the door opened again 2 hours later. This time it wasn't the captain. It was a woman, late 40s, short dark hair, sharp eyes, and the kind of posture that said she'd spent her life giving orders and expecting them to be followed. She wore civilian clothes, but the ID clipped to her belt said Department of Defense. "Ms. Mercer," the woman said. "I'm Deputy Director Laura Voss. We need to talk." Ava sat up. "About what?" "About why you're still alive." Voss pulled the desk chair out and sat down, folding her hands in her lap. 3 years ago, you were part of a classified operation in Afghanistan. Your unit was tasked with providing medical support for a joint task force conducting raids on high-value targets. On your 4th deployment, your convoy was ambushed. The official report says you were killed. IED, no body recovered. "That's what I heard too," Ava said. "Except you weren't killed. You were extracted by a private contractor named Garrett Finch and his team. They pulled you out, patched you up, and then handed you over to Colonel Marcus Hale, who made you disappear." "Why would he do that?" "Because someone wanted you dead, not the enemy. Someone on our side." Ava's stomach tightened. "Who?" "We don't know, but we know the ambush wasn't random. It was set up. Your convoy was leaked. Someone gave the insurgents your route, your timing, everything, and when the dust settled, you were the only survivor." "There were others," Ava said. 3 made it out with me. 2 of them died in the medevac chopper. The 3rd disappeared a week later. You're the only one left." Ava stood up, pacing now. "So you think I know something. That's why Garrett came after me." "We think someone believes you know something. Whether you actually do is irrelevant. Perception is reality in this world." "I don't know anything. I was a medic. I kept people alive. That's all I did." "Then why did Hale erase you?" "He said it was for my protection." "And you believed him?" Ava stopped pacing. "I didn't have a choice." Voss leaned back, studying her. "Garrett Finch is former Special Forces. Dishonorably discharged 5 years ago for running black market ops in Iraq. Since then, he's been working as a gun for hire, mostly for private military contractors with questionable ethics. 3 weeks ago, he resurfaced in the States. We've been tracking him, trying to figure out what he's after. Now we know. He's after you." "Who hired him?" "That's what we're trying to figure out. But whoever it is has resources, money, connections, and they're willing to kill civilians to get to you." Ava crossed her arms. "So what do you want from me?" "I want you to tell me everything you remember from that day. Every detail, every person, every conversation." "I've been over it 1,000 times in my head. There's nothing." "Then we'll go over it 1,001. Ava sat back down, rubbing her temples. "Fine. What do you want to know?" "Start with the convoy. Who was in it?" 12 people, 6 soldiers, 4 contractors, me, and another medic named Sam Reyes. We were moving supplies from Forward Operating Base Monroe to a smaller outpost near the border. Routine run. We'd done it a dozen times. "Who planned the route?" "Command. Someone at Monroe." "Who knew the route?" "Everyone in the convoy, and whoever filed the movement order." "That's a lot of people." "It's the military. Everything's documented." Voss pulled out a tablet, swiped through files. "The movement order was filed by Captain Derek Lowe. Does that name mean anything to you?" Ava frowned. "Lowe? Yeah, he was logistics. I saw him around the base, but I didn't know him." "He's dead. Killed in a training accident 6 months after your convoy was hit." "Convenient. Isn't it?" Voss tapped the screen again. What about the contractors in your convoy? Do you remember their names? Two of them, yeah. Garrett Finch was one. The other was a guy named Paul Driscoll. Big guy, quiet, always wore sunglasses even at night.
Driscoll's dead too. Killed in Syria 2 years ago. Officially, anyway. Ava looked up. You don't believe it? I don't believe much of anything when it comes to contractors. They have a way of dying and then turning up alive when it's convenient. So you think Driscoll might still be out there? I think it's possible. Ava thought about that.
Driscoll had been in the vehicle behind hers when the IED went off. She hadn't seen him after the blast, hadn't seen much of anything except smoke and blood and people screaming. If he'd survived, if he'd walked away, that changed things. What about Sam? Ava asked. The other medic. You said 2 people died in the chopper. Was he one of them? Voss hesitated. No. Sam Reyes survived the medevac. He was transferred to a hospital in Germany, treated for shrapnel wounds and a concussion, and then discharged 3 weeks later. He went back to the States and disappeared. Disappeared how? Stopped using his credit cards. Stopped calling his family. Just vanished.
Do you think he's dead?
I think if someone wanted him dead, they would have done it in Germany. The fact that he disappeared on his own suggests he knew something and ran. Or someone's keeping him hidden. Like Hale did with you? Ava stood up again, too restless to sit. This doesn't make sense. If someone wanted us dead, why not just finish the job? Why let us walk away? Maybe they didn't know you survived until later, or maybe they thought you did die. You were declared dead after all. If Hale hadn't pulled you out, you'd be in an unmarked grave somewhere. So what changed? Why come after me now? Because you surfaced. You saved those people today, and it got flagged. Facial recognition, biometrics, something tripped a wire somewhere, and suddenly you're back on the radar. Ava felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders. She'd saved 7 lives, and it had painted a target on her back. Again. What happens now? She asked. Now we figure out who's hunting you and why, and we stop them before they try again. How? By finding Sam Reyes. If he's alive, he might have answers, and if he's not, then we know whoever's behind this is tying up loose ends. And if they come for me here, they won't. This place doesn't exist on any map. The only people who know you're here are the ones who brought you. You're as safe as you're going to get. Ava didn't feel safe. She felt trapped. But she didn't say that. Instead, she asked, how long do I have to stay here? Until we have answers. Could be a day. Could be a week. And if you don't find answers, then you stay here until the threat's neutralized. That could be never. Voss stood up, tucking the tablet under her arm. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. She left, and the door locked again. Ava stood in the middle of the room, alone with her thoughts and the growing certainty that this wasn't going to end the way Voss thought it would. People like Garrett didn't just give up, and whoever had hired him wasn't going to stop because the trail went cold. She lay back down on the bed and closed her eyes, but sleep still wouldn't come. Her mind kept drifting back to that day in Afghanistan. The convoy, the explosion, the chaos. She remembered the sound of it, the sharp crack, the roar of fire, the way the world tilted and everything went sideways. She remembered crawling out of the wreckage, ears ringing, vision blurred, and seeing bodies. So many bodies. She'd started working on instinct, moving from one to the next, doing what she could with what she had. Sam had been there too, working just as fast, just as desperate. They'd saved 3 people, maybe 4. She couldn't remember now. And then Garrett had appeared, pulling her away from a soldier she was trying to stabilize, shouting something she couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. He'd dragged her to a vehicle, shoved her inside, and they'd driven. She remembered that part clearly. The way the truck bounced over rough terrain, the way her hand shook so badly she couldn't hold a bandage steady, the way Garrett kept looking at her like she was a problem he didn't know how to solve. When they'd finally stopped, it was at a small base she didn't recognize. Garrett had handed her off to someone. An officer, she thought, but she couldn't remember his face. And then she'd woken up in a hospital bed, and Hale had been standing there telling her she was dead. She'd believed him, because what else was she supposed to do? The sound of footsteps in the hallway pulled her out of the memory. She sat up, listening. The footsteps stopped outside her door. A keycard beeped. The lock disengaged. The door opened and the captain stepped inside. "You've got a visitor." Ava frowned. "Who?" He didn't give a name, just said you'd want to see him. Before she could ask more, a man stepped into the room behind the captain. Tall, lean, mid-50s, with graying hair and a face that looked like it had seen too many bad days. He was wearing civilian clothes, but he moved like military, and Ava knew him instantly. "Sam?" she breathed. Sam Reyes smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Doc?" The captain stepped back into the hallway and closed the door, leaving them alone. Ava stared at Sam, trying to process the fact that he was here, that he was alive, that he was standing 3 feet away looking older and more tired than she remembered. "How did you find me?" she asked. "Same way everyone else did. You got loud. You've been hiding too."
Yeah, didn't work out so well for either of us, did it? Ava crossed her arms. "Why are you here?"
"Because we need to talk. About what happened. About what we know." "I don't know anything." "Bullshit. You know the same thing I do. You just don't want to admit it." "What are you talking about?" Sam stepped closer, lowering his voice. "The convoy wasn't hit by insurgents. It was hit by us." Ava's blood went cold. "What?" "The IED. The ambush. It was planned by someone on our side. I didn't figure it out until later, until I started putting pieces together. But I'm sure now." "That's insane." "Is it? Think about it. The route was leaked. The timing was perfect. And the only people who survived were the ones someone wanted alive. That doesn't make sense. Why would anyone? Because we saw something. On one of the raids, something we weren't supposed to see." Ava's mind raced. "What raid?" "The one 3 days before the convoy. The raid on the compound outside Kandahar. You remember it?" She did. They'd gone in expecting to find weapons, intel, maybe a high-value target. What they'd found was a warehouse full of cash. American cash. Millions of dollars stacked in crates ready to be moved. "The money," she said. "Yeah, the money. Someone was running it. Someone high up, and we saw it. We didn't report it. Command handled it. Command buried it. And then they tried to bury us." Ava shook her head, trying to reject what he was saying, but the pieces were starting to fit. "If that's true, why are we still alive?" "Because they didn't know we survived. Not at first. By the time they figured it out, Hale had already pulled you, and I'd already gone underground. But now you're back, and they know, and they're not going to stop until we're dead." "Who's they?" "I don't know. But I know it's someone with enough power to cover up a convoy hit, to fake deaths, to make people disappear. That's not small time. That's big." Ava sat down, legs suddenly weak. "Why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you tell someone?" "Who was I supposed to tell? The people who tried to kill me? I went to Hale. He told me the same thing he told you. Stay dead. Stay quiet. So I did. And now? Now it doesn't matter. They know we're alive. The only way out is through." "Through what?" "Through the truth. We find out who ordered the hit, we expose them, and we make sure they can't do it again." Ava looked at him, saw the determination in his eyes, and felt something shift inside her. She'd been running for 3 years, hiding, pretending to be someone else. But Sam was right. Running wasn't working anymore. The only way forward was to stop hiding and start fighting. "How do we do that?" she asked. "We start with Garrett. He's the key. He was there that day. He pulled you out, which means he was working for whoever set it up. He tried to kill me today." "No, he tried to scare you. If he wanted you dead, you'd be dead. He wanted something from you, information, proof, something he thinks you have, like, but I don't have anything. Maybe you do and you just don't know it." Before Ava could respond, the door burst open. Not the captain. Not Voss. A soldier she didn't recognize, weapon drawn, face tense. "We've got a breach," he said. "South perimeter, multiple hostiles. We need to move you. Now." Ava and Sam exchanged a look. "How did they find us?" she asked. "Does it matter?" Sam said. "Let's go." They followed the soldier into the hallway, moving fast. Alarms were blaring now, red lights flashing. More soldiers appeared, forming a protective detail, weapons up, eyes scanning. They moved through the facility like a unit, practiced and efficient, but Ava could feel the tension. This wasn't supposed to happen. This place was supposed to be untouchable. They reached an elevator at the end of the hall. The soldier hit the button, and the doors opened immediately. They piled inside. Ava, Sam, 3 soldiers. The doors closed, and the elevator started descending. "Where are we going?" Ava asked. "Sublevel 3. Secure bunker. You'll be safe there." The elevator shuddered, stopped, the lights flickered. "That's not good," Sam muttered. One of the soldiers hit the emergency button. Nothing. He tried the radio. Static. "They cut the power," he said. "Can you get us out?" Ava asked. "Working on it." The soldier pried open a panel on the wall, exposing a manual release. He pulled it, and the doors cracked open, just enough to see that they were stuck between floors. Above them was darkness. Below was more darkness. "We climb," the soldier said. "Climb where?" Sam asked. "Up. There's a maintenance hatch at the top of the shaft. We go up, we get out." He boosted himself up through the gap in the doors, then reached down to pull Ava up. Sam followed. The other 2 soldiers stayed below, covering the rear. Ava climbed, her hands gripping the metal rungs bolted into the shaft wall, trying not to think about the drop below. It was cold in here, and the only light came from the soldiers' helmet-mounted flashlights. They climbed for what felt like forever, but was probably only a minute. Then the soldier above her stopped. "Hatch is jammed," he said. "Can you force it?" "Give me a second." He braced himself and pushed. The hatch groaned but didn't budge. He tried again, harder this time, and it gave with a metallic screech. Light poured in from above, artificial, harsh. The soldier climbed through, then helped Ava up. Sam came next. They were in a storage room, shelves lined with equipment and supplies. The soldier moved to the door, checked the hallway, then motioned them forward. They stepped out into chaos. Smoke filled the corridor. Gunfire echoed from somewhere close. Soldiers ran past, shouting orders, returning fire. "This way," the soldier said, leading them deeper into the facility. They turned a corner and almost ran straight into Garrett. He was standing in the middle of the hallway, weapon raised, flanked by 2 of his men. Blood streaked his face, but he was smiling. "There you are," he said. The soldier with Ava moved to raise his weapon, but one of Garrett's men shot him first. The soldier went down, and Sam grabbed Ava, pulling her back. But there was nowhere to go. Garrett and his team had them boxed in. "I'm getting tired of chasing you, Doc," Garrett said. "Then stop," Ava said. "Can't. Not until you give me what I need. I don't have it. You keep saying that, but I don't believe you." He stepped closer, and Ava saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not hatred, desperation. "Who hired you?" she asked. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." Garrett tilted his head. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" "Who you pissed off, what you cost them." "I didn't cost anyone anything. I was a medic. I saved lives." "You saw something you weren't supposed to see. And now someone very powerful wants to make sure you can never talk about it." "The money," Sam said. "The raid. That's what this is about." Garrett's smile widened. "Smart. Yeah. The money. 20 million in cash. Gone. And you 2 were the only witnesses who lived." "We didn't take it," Ava said. "I know. But they think you know where it went, and they're willing to pay me a lot to find out." "We don't know." "Then you're useless, and useless people don't get to keep breathing." He raised his weapon, and Ava braced for the shot. But it didn't come. Instead, the wall behind Garrett exploded inward, and soldiers poured through. Not Garrett's men, not the facility's defenders. Someone else. Someone new. They moved with precision, weapons up, coordinated. And at the front of the group was a man Ava recognized instantly. Colonel Marcus Hale. "Stand down, Finch," Hale said, his voice calm but carrying weight. Garrett hesitated. "You don't have jurisdiction here." "I do now." Hale's soldiers fanned out, surrounding Garrett and his men. For a moment, no one moved. Then Garrett lowered his weapon. "This isn't over," he said. "Yeah," Hale replied. "It is." Garrett and his men were disarmed and restrained. Hale walked over to Ava, his expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked. "Define okay." "Fair point." He looked at Sam. "Reyes, didn't expect to see you here." "Surprise," Sam said flatly. Hale motioned for his soldiers to take Ava and Sam. "We're leaving. Now.
Where are we going? Ava asked. Somewhere they can't reach you, at least not easily. They moved through the facility, stepping over debris and bodies, and exited through a side door. Outside, the night air was cold and sharp. Helicopters sat on a makeshift landing pad, rotors spinning. Hale led them to the nearest one and climbed in. Ava and Sam followed. As the helicopter lifted off, Ava looked down at the facility below. Smoke rose from multiple breaches. Fires burned, and she realized that whoever was after her wasn't just willing to kill her. They were willing to burn everything down to do it. Hale handed her a headset. "Put this on." She did. His voice came through, clear over the rotor noise. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About who's trying to kill you, and why I'm the only one standing between them and success." The helicopter banked hard to the east, and Ava's stomach lurched. Below them, the facility was shrinking into a cluster of lights and smoke, soon swallowed by the dark sprawl of forest. Hale sat across from her, his face half shadowed in the dim cabin light, and she could see the tension in his jaw. Sam was beside her, silent, gripping the edge of his seat like he didn't trust the aircraft to stay in the air. Hale's voice crackled through the headset. "The people who want you dead aren't amateurs. They're not contractors working off a grudge. They're inside." "Deep inside?" "Inside what?" Ava asked. "The system. DOD. Intelligence. Maybe higher." "You're saying the government wants us dead." "I'm saying someone with access to government resources wants you dead. There's a difference." Sam leaned forward. "Who?" "That's what we're going to find out." Hale pulled a tablet from a case at his feet and swiped it open. 3 years ago, your convoy was carrying more than supplies. It was carrying a witness. Ava frowned. "What witness?" "An Afghan informant, codenamed Sparrow. He'd been feeding us intel on a smuggling operation, arms, cash, narcotics. Big money. The kind that crosses borders and ends up in accounts you can't trace. He was supposed to be extracted that day, moved to a safe house in Germany, debriefed, then relocated. But the convoy never made it." "Because someone didn't want him talking," Sam said. "Exactly. The ambush wasn't about you. You were collateral. But Sparrow died in the blast, and with him went everything he knew." Ava's mind raced. "So why come after us now? The informant's dead. The intel's gone." "Because someone thinks it's not gone. They think Sparrow passed something to one of you before he died. A file. A name. Proof." "He didn't," Ava said. "I never even saw him. I didn't know he was in the convoy." "Neither did I," Sam added. Hale's eyes narrowed. "Then why does Garrett Finch think you have it?" "I don't know. Maybe someone lied to him. Or maybe someone's using him to clean up loose ends. Either way, you're still targets." The helicopter's rotors thudded in the silence that followed. Ava stared out the window at the passing darkness, trying to piece it together. If she didn't have what they thought she had, and Sam didn't have it, then someone was playing a game with pieces they didn't understand. Or worse, someone knew exactly what they were doing and didn't care who got killed in the process. "Where are we going?" Sam asked. "Fort Garrison. Secure base, limited access, off most radars. You'll be safe there while we dig." "Safe," Ava repeated. "Like we were at Blackstone?" Hale didn't flinch. "Blackstone was compromised. Someone fed them your location. That won't happen again." "How can you be sure?" "Because this time, only 3 people know where you'll be. Me, the pilot, and the base commander, and I trust all of them with my life." "That's reassuring," Sam muttered. Hale leaned back, folding his arms. "You don't have to trust me, but you don't have a lot of options right now." He wasn't wrong. Ava looked at Sam, saw the same resignation in his face. They were passengers now, being moved from one cage to another, and all they could do was hope the people holding the keys were on their side. The flight took another 40 minutes. When they finally descended, it was onto a floodlit airstrip surrounded by high fences and guard towers. Fort Garrison looked less like a base and more like a prison. Concrete buildings, razor wire, soldiers with rifles at every checkpoint. The helicopter touched down with a jolt, and Hale was out before the rotors stopped spinning. "Follow me," he said. They crossed the tarmac to a low building near the edge of the compound. Inside, the air was cooler, the lighting harsh and fluorescent. A man in uniform waited for them, tall, graying, with the kind of posture that said he'd spent his life in command. His nameplate read Brigadier General Warren Kessler. "Colonel," Kessler said, nodding to Hale. Then his eyes shifted to Ava and Sam. "These the ones?" "Yeah." Kessler looked them over like he was appraising livestock. "They don't look like much." "They kept 7 people alive under fire," Hale said. "That's more than most," Kessler grunted. "Fair enough. You'll be in Building 6. Restricted access. No phones, no internet, no contact with the outside. Meals are delivered. You don't leave unless I say so." "Sounds like house arrest," Sam said. "Sounds like staying alive," Kessler replied. He led them through a series of corridors to a wing that smelled like disinfectant and old paint. Building 6 was a barracks that had been converted into something resembling a safe house. Small rooms, reinforced doors, cameras in every hallway. Kessler stopped at the second door on the right and unlocked it. "You're here," he said to Ava. He pointed to the next door. "Reyes, you're there." Ava stepped inside. The room was even smaller than the one at Blackstone. Bed, desk, chair, bathroom. A single window with bars. She turned back to Kessler. "How long?" "As long as it takes." He left without another word. Hale lingered in the doorway. "Get some rest," he said. "We'll talk in the morning." "What happens in the morning?" "We start figuring out who's pulling the strings. And if we can't, then we make them show themselves." He closed the door, and the lock clicked. Ava stood there for a moment, then crossed to the bed and sat down. Her body ached, ribs sore from where Garrett had shoved her, shoulders tight from the climb in the elevator shaft, exhaustion settling in her bones. But her mind wouldn't stop. She kept replaying the last 24 hours, looking for the moment where everything had gone sideways, and kept landing on the same conclusion. There was no single moment. It had been a cascade, one thing leading to another, and now she was here. She lay back and closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, she thought about the money. 20 million in cash. Enough to buy silence. Enough to kill for. Morning came too early. A knock on the door at 6, a tray of food slid through a slot. Eggs, toast, coffee that tasted like it had been brewed 3 days ago. Ava ate because she needed the fuel, not because she wanted it. By 7, Hale was back, this time with a folder thick enough to be a novel. "Conference room," he said. "Now." She followed him down the hall to a room with a long table, a whiteboard covered in notes, and a projector humming in the corner. Sam was already there, looking like he'd slept as poorly as she had. Voss was there too, along with 2 people Ava didn't recognize, a man in his 30s with wire-rimmed glasses and the nervous energy of someone who lived on caffeine, and a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. Hale gestured to them. "This is analyst Martin Cross and investigator Rachel Ortiz. They've been pulling files on everyone connected to your convoy." Cross tapped a key on his laptop and the projector lit up with a list of names, 12 in total. Ava recognized most of them, soldiers she'd known, contractors she'd worked with. Half the names had red X's next to them. "Dead," Cross said, pointing to the marked names. "Killed in action, training accidents, or disappeared. The other half are still alive, but scattered. 2 are still active duty. 3 are contractors working overseas, one's in prison." "For what?" Sam asked. "Arms trafficking. Got caught selling rifles to a militia group in Yemen." Ava studied the list. "What about Captain Lowe, the one who filed the movement order?" "Dead," Ortiz said. "But we dug into his financials. 3 days before your convoy, he deposited $15,000 into an offshore account. No explanation. No paper trail." "Someone paid him to leak the route," Ava said. "That's our working theory." Hale crossed his arms. "The question is, who paid him and why?" Cross pulled up another slide, this one showing a web of connections, lines drawn between names, dates, locations. "We've been tracking financial movements around the time of the ambush. Most of it's noise, but there's one anomaly. A shell company called Frontier Logistics. It was set up 6 months before your convoy and dissolved 3 months after. In that window, it moved $18 million through a series of accounts." $18 million, Sam said, "not 20. The missing 2 million could have been payments, bribes, operating costs." Ava leaned forward. "Who ran Frontier Logistics?"
That's where it gets interesting, Ortiz said. She pulled up a document, incorporation papers, signatures, legal jargon. At the bottom was a name. The company was registered to a man named Victor Aldrich, former military, former intelligence, current CEO of a private security firm called Sentinel Global. The name hit Ava like a punch. She'd heard of Sentinel Global. Everyone in the contracting world had. They were one of the biggest players, working in war zones, disaster zones, anywhere there was money to be made off chaos. Aldrich is connected to the ambush? She asked. We don't know yet, but he's connected to the money, and the money's connected to you. Hale pulled out a photo and slid it across the table. It showed a man in his 50s, lean and sharp-featured, standing in front of a corporate logo. Victor Aldrich, West Point grad, 20 years in Special Forces, another 10 in the CIA. He went private 15 years ago and built Sentinel into a billion-dollar operation. He's got contracts with DoD, State Department, half a dozen foreign governments, and he's got friends in very high places. So he's untouchable, Sam said. Not untouchable, just difficult. How difficult? He's testifying before Congress next week. Some oversight hearing on contractor accountability. If we can tie him to frontier logistics, to the ambush, we can bring him down. Ava shook her head. You're talking about taking on someone with that much power. That's not a fight we can win. We don't have to win, Hale said. We just have to survive long enough to make the truth public. And how do we do that? By finding proof. Something concrete, a paper trail, a witness, something that ties Aldrich to the convoy and the money. Where do we start? Ortiz tapped the table. With the one person who might know, Paul Driscoll. Ava looked up. I thought he was dead. Officially, yes. But we've been digging. 3 months ago, someone matching his description was spotted in Bogota, working security for a cartel-linked businessman. We think he faked his death and went underground. Why? Same reason you did. He knew too much. Sam leaned back. So we find Driscoll. We get answers. If he's willing to talk, Cross said. Big if. Hale nodded. Ortiz is flying to Bogota tonight. She'll track him down, see if he'll cooperate. In the meantime, you two stay here, out of sight. What about Garrett? Ava asked. He's still out there. Garrett's in custody, for now. But the people who hired him aren't, and they're not going to stop just because we locked up one contractor. The meeting ended, and Ava returned to her room. The walls felt closer now, the air thicker. She paced, trying to burn off the restless energy, but it didn't help. She kept thinking about Aldrich, about the money, about how many people had died to keep it secret. And she kept thinking about what Hale had said, survive long enough to make the truth public. That night, she couldn't sleep again. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, and listened to the sounds of the base, footsteps in the hall, distant voices, the hum of machinery. At some point, she heard a door open, then close, then nothing. She sat up. Something was wrong. The silence was too complete. The usual background noise, the guards talking, the cameras whirring, was gone. She crossed to the door and pressed her ear against it. Nothing. She tried the handle, locked. Then the lights went out. Not just in her room, the entire building. The hum of the air conditioning stopped. The faint glow from under the door disappeared. Ava stood in the dark, her pulse quickening, and listened. Footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Coming closer. She moved to the side of the door, pressing her back against the wall, and waited. The footsteps stopped outside her room. A key card beeped. The lock disengaged. The door opened, and a figure stepped inside, silhouetted against the faint emergency lighting in the hallway. Ava didn't wait. She lunged, driving her shoulder into the figure's midsection, and they went down hard. She heard a grunt, felt them twist beneath her, and then a flashlight clicked on, blinding her. Mercer, stop! She froze. The voice was familiar. She blinked against the light and saw Sam's face. What the hell are you doing? She hissed. Getting us out of here. What? He scrambled to his feet, helping her up. The base is compromised. Someone cut the power. Kessler's dead. Hale's pinned down in the command center. We need to move. How do you know this? Because I heard the gunfire, and because the guard outside my door tried to kill me. Ava's stomach dropped. Tried? He's not a problem anymore. He handed her something, a pistol taken from the guard. She checked it by touch. Full magazine, one in the chamber.
"Where do we go?" she asked. "There's a motor pool on the east side. We get a vehicle, we get out."
And go where? Anywhere that isn't here. They moved into the hallway, staying low, moving fast. The emergency lights were spaced far apart, casting long shadows. Ava could hear gunfire now, distant but growing closer, voices shouting, the sharp crack of rifles. Sam led the way, his own weapon up, checking corners before they turned. They reached a stairwell and started down. At the bottom, Sam paused, listening. Then he motioned her forward. They stepped into another corridor, this one darker, and froze. 3 bodies on the floor, soldiers. Base security, all dead. Fresh blood pooled around them. "Keep moving," Sam whispered. They stepped over the bodies and kept going. The motor pool was 2 buildings over, accessible through a covered walkway. They made it halfway before they heard footsteps behind them. Ava glanced back and saw figures moving in the dark. Tactical gear, night vision, weapons up. "Run," Sam said. They ran. The walkway was long and exposed, and Ava felt every second stretch as they sprinted. Bullets hit the walls around them, sparking off metal, shattering glass. She didn't look back. She just ran, lungs burning, legs pumping, until they burst through the door at the far end and into the motor pool. Rows of vehicles, trucks, jeeps, armored transports. Sam ran to the nearest jeep, yanked the door open, and started hot-wiring it. Ava covered him, gun raised, scanning the entrance. The footsteps were getting closer. "Hurry," she said. "I'm trying." The engine roared to life. Sam shouted, "Get in!" Ava dove into the passenger seat and Sam floored it. The Jeep lurched forward, tires screeching, and smashed through the motor pool gate. Bullets tore through the windshield, and Ava ducked, glass raining down on her. Sam didn't slow. He drove like the road was on fire, weaving through the base, heading for the perimeter. "There," Ava pointed. The main gate was ahead, closed and guarded. Sam didn't hesitate. He aimed the Jeep straight at it and gunned the engine. The guards opened fire, but Sam swerved, clipping the gate's support post, and the barrier gave way. They crashed through, the Jeep bouncing onto the access road, and kept going. Ava looked back. Headlights were following. 3 vehicles, maybe 4. "We've got company," she said. Sam's jaw tightened. "Yeah, I see them." He took a hard turn onto a dirt road, the Jeep fishtailing, and accelerated. The forest closed in around them, branches scraping the sides of the vehicle. The road was rough, barely more than a trail, but Sam didn't slow. Behind them, the headlights were gaining. "Where does this go?" Ava asked. "No idea." "Great plan." "You got a better one?" She didn't. She just held on as the Jeep bounced over ruts and rocks, the engine screaming. The headlights behind them were closer now, close enough that she could see the shapes of the vehicles. Military trucks faster and heavier than the Jeep. "They're going to catch us," she said. "Not if I can help it." Sam yanked the wheel to the left, and the Jeep skidded onto a narrower path. The trucks behind them couldn't make the turn as fast, and they lost a few seconds. But it wouldn't be enough. Ava could hear the engines roaring, could see the headlights cutting through the trees. Then the path opened up, and they were on a ridge overlooking a ravine. The drop was steep, maybe 40 feet, and at the bottom was a river. "Hold on," Sam said. "What are you—" He drove off the edge. The Jeep went airborne for what felt like forever. Ava's stomach lurched, and she gripped the dashboard, bracing for impact. They hit the slope hard, the Jeep tumbling, rolling, metal shrieking. Ava's head slammed into something, the door, the roof, she didn't know, and everything went white, then black, then white again. When the world stopped spinning, she was upside down. The Jeep had landed on its roof in the shallow part of the river. Water was seeping in through the broken windows. Her seatbelt was the only thing keeping her from falling. "Sam?" she gasped. No answer. She fumbled with the seatbelt, got it loose, and dropped into the cold water. Her head was pounding, her vision blurred. She crawled out through the shattered windshield and pulled herself onto the riverbank. Then she turned back and saw Sam. He was still in the driver's seat, unconscious, blood running down his face. The water was rising. Ava didn't think. She dove back into the wreckage, grabbed Sam under the arms, and pulled. He was heavier than she expected, dead weight, and the seatbelt was jammed. She yanked at it, her hand slipping on the wet fabric, until it finally gave. She dragged him out, inch by inch, until they were both on the bank. She rolled him onto his side and checked his pulse. Weak, but steady. His breathing was shallow. She checked his head, gash above the eyebrow, already swelling. Possible concussion. She needed to stop the bleeding, but she had nothing. No supplies. No gear. Above them, on the ridge, headlights appeared. The trucks had stopped and figures were climbing out, shining flashlights down into the ravine. Ava cursed under her breath. She grabbed Sam and started dragging him into the trees, away from the light. Her ribs screamed in protest. Her legs shook, but she didn't stop. She pulled him into the underbrush, then went back and covered their tracks as best she could. The flashlight swept the area, beams cutting through the dark. Ava crouched low, holding her breath, and watched. The figures moved along the ridge, searching. One of them pointed at the wrecked jeep. Another radioed something. Then they started descending. Ava's hand found the pistol Sam had given her. She checked it. Still there. Still loaded. She waited until the figures were halfway down the slope, then fired 3 shots. Not at them, but at the jeep's fuel tank. The explosion lit up the ravine like daylight. The fireball climbed into the sky, and the figures on the slope scrambled back, shouting. Ava used the chaos to move, dragging Sam deeper into the forest, putting as much distance as she could between them and the wreckage. When she finally stopped, she was gasping, her arms numb, her vision swimming. She laid Sam down and checked him again, still breathing, still alive. But he needed help, real help. She pulled out her phone, cracked screen, no signal. Of course, she was in the middle of nowhere being hunted by people with military-grade equipment, and she had nothing but a pistol and a half-dead partner. She looked around. Trees, darkness. No landmarks. No way to know which direction to go. And then she heard it. Voices. Close. Moving through the trees, they were still searching. Ava grabbed Sam and kept moving. Ava's lungs burned with every step, her arms screaming as she dragged Sam through the underbrush. The voices behind them were getting closer, methodical, organized, sweeping the forest in a grid pattern. She could hear their radios crackling, boots crunching through leaves, orders being shouted. These weren't amateurs. They knew what they were doing. She pulled Sam behind a fallen tree and dropped low, pressing her hand against his chest to feel his breathing. Still shallow, still weak. Blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage she'd torn from her sleeve and wrapped around his head. He needed a hospital. What he had was her, a useless phone, and about 30 seconds before they were found. A flashlight beam swept overhead. Ava held her breath. The beam moved on, then circled back, slower this time. Someone was checking the area more carefully. She tightened her grip on the pistol, thumbing off the safety. The beam stopped. Held. Then a voice called out, "Got something here!" Footsteps approached. Ava waited until she could see the silhouette, tactical vest, rifle raised, moving cautiously, and then she broke from cover, sprinting perpendicular to his line of sight. The man shouted, swung his weapon toward her, but she was already gone, disappearing into the thick forest. Shots rang out, muzzle flashes lighting up the trees, but the rounds went wide. She ran for maybe 200 yards, then looped back. The voices had converged on her last position, multiple flashlights cutting through the dark. While they searched for her, she circled around and made it back to Sam. He was still unconscious, still breathing. She grabbed him under the arms again and pulled. Her back screamed. Her ribs felt like they were cracking. But she kept moving, dragging him inch by inch through the mud and leaves, away from the search pattern. She didn't know where she was going. She just knew she couldn't stop. After what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 minutes, she heard something new. Not voices. Water. Running water. She adjusted her course and found a stream, narrow, shallow, cold. She pulled Sam into it and started moving downstream, letting the current help carry some of his weight. The water would mask their tracks. Maybe. She moved until her legs gave out, then pulled Sam onto a rocky bank and collapsed beside him. Her whole body was shaking, cold, exhaustion, adrenaline crash. She forced herself to sit up and check Sam again. His pulse was still there. His breathing hadn't changed. That was something. She looked around. The forest was dense here, the canopy thick enough to block most of the moonlight. She couldn't see the searchlights anymore. Couldn't hear the voices. Either she'd lost them or they'd pulled back to regroup. Neither option gave her much comfort. Her phone was dead, water damage from the crash. Sam's was gone entirely. She had no way to call for help, no way to know where she was, and no idea who to trust even if she could reach someone. Hale was pinned down or dead. Kessler was dead. Fort Garrison was compromised. And somewhere out there, Victor Aldrich was still moving pieces on a board she couldn't see. She closed her eyes and tried to think. They needed shelter. They needed medical supplies. And they needed to figure out who had sold them out this time. Sam stirred, a groan, low and pained. Ava moved to his side. "Hey," she said quietly. "Don't move too fast." His eyes opened, unfocused, confused. "What happened?" "You drove us off a cliff." "Did it work?" "You're alive, so yeah." He tried to sit up, winced, and settled back down. "Where are we?" "Middle of nowhere. They're still looking for us." "How many?" "At least a dozen, maybe more." Sam closed his eyes. "We're not getting out of this, are we?" "Not if you talk like that." He almost smiled. Always the optimist. "Someone has to be." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "You think Hale's alive?" "I don't know." "If he's not, we're on our own." "We've been on our own since the convoy." Sam didn't argue. Ava stood up, scanning the area. They couldn't stay here. Sooner or later, the search would expand, and they'd be found. She needed to move, but Sam couldn't walk. She couldn't carry him much farther, which left one option: find help. "Stay here," she said. "I'm going to scout ahead." "You're leaving me?" "I'll be back. Just need to see what's around." "Ava, I'll be back," she repeated. She moved into the trees, following the stream. The forest opened up after a few hundred yards, and she found herself on the edge of a dirt road. Old, barely maintained, but a road, which meant civilization wasn't far. She followed it north for maybe a quarter mile and saw lights through the trees. A building. Small. Isolated. She approached carefully, staying low, and saw what it was. A hunting cabin. Old wood, sagging roof, but the lights were on and there was a truck parked out front. Someone was home. Ava circled the cabin, checking for threats. One vehicle. No guards. No cameras. Just a cabin in the woods. She moved to the front door and knocked. Footsteps inside. The door cracked open and a man peered out, late 60s, weathered face, shotgun in his hands. "Help you?" he asked, not unfriendly but cautious. "I need a phone," Ava said. "Who are you?" "Someone who's having a bad day." He looked her over, muddy, blood-stained, exhausted. "You in trouble?" "Yeah." "Police kind of trouble or the other kind?" "The other kind." He studied her for a long moment, then lowered the shotgun. "Phone's inside, but you make this quick." She followed him in. The cabin was small, cluttered, smelling of wood smoke and old coffee. He pointed to a landline on the wall. Ava picked it up and dialed the only number she could remember, Hale's direct line. It rang and rang and rang. Then someone picked up, not Hale. A voice she didn't recognize. Male. Calm. "Who is this?" the voice asked. "I'm looking for Colonel Hale." "Colonel Hale is unavailable." "Who am I speaking with?" Ava's blood ran cold. "Where is he?" "I'll ask again. Who is this?" She hung up. The old man was watching her. "That didn't sound good." "It wasn't. You need help?" "I need a lot of things. A phone that works is one of them." He gestured to the kitchen table. "Sit. You look like you're about to fall over." She didn't argue. She sat, and he poured her a cup of coffee from a pot that looked like it had been sitting there since morning. It was bitter and lukewarm, but she drank it anyway. "What's your name, what?" he asked. "Ava." "I'm Roy." He sat down across from her. "You want to tell me what kind of trouble you're in? The kind that gets people killed?" "Fair enough." He sipped his own coffee. "You got anyone else you can call?" Ava thought about it. Voss was in Bogota. Cross and Ortiz were analysts, not field operatives. Everyone else she'd trusted was either dead or compromised, except one person. "I need to make another call," she said. "Long distance." Roy shrugged. "Knock yourself out." She went back to the phone and dialed a number she'd memorized 3 years ago and never used.
It rang twice before someone answered. Yeah? A woman's voice, sharp, suspicious. It's Mercer. A pause. Then, you're supposed to be dead. So I've heard. I need a favor. From me? You've got some nerve. I wouldn't ask if I had a choice. Another pause. Ava could hear background noise, traffic, voices, the hum of a city. Finally, the woman said, What do you need? Extraction, 2 people, middle of nowhere, Virginia mountains, no official channels. You're asking for a miracle. I'm asking for help. Who's the second person? Sam Reyes. Christ, you two really don't know when to quit, do you? We're working on it. Can you do it or not? The woman sighed. Give me your location. Ava turned to Roy. Where are we? He gave her a rough set of coordinates, and she relayed them. I'll have someone there in 3 hours, the woman said. But Mercer, you owe me. Big. I know. The line went dead. Ava set the phone down and looked at Roy. I need to go back and get my friend. He's hurt. How hurt? Concussion. Maybe worse. Roy stood up. I'll help. Got a first aid kit in the truck. They drove in Roy's pickup, headlights cutting through the dark, until Ava recognized the stream. She told him to stop, and they got out. She led him through the trees to where she'd left Sam. He was still there, still breathing, but his color was worse. Roy knelt beside him and checked his vitals with the practiced ease of someone who'd done it before. He needs a hospital. Can't go to a hospital. Then he needs luck. Roy opened the first aid kit and started cleaning the gash on Sam's head. Ava watched, feeling useless. You know what you're doing? She asked. Enough. Learned field medicine in the service. Long time ago. Which branch? Marines. 2 tours in Vietnam. You? Army. Medic. Roy glanced at her. Figured. You move like someone who's been through it. He finished cleaning the wound and wrapped it with fresh gauze. Sam's eyes flickered open again. Who's this? Sam mumbled. A friend, Ava said. We don't have friends. We do now. Roy helped them get Sam into the truck. They drove back to the cabin and Roy set Sam up on the couch with blankets and water. Ava sat at the table watching the clock. 2 hours and 40 minutes until extraction. Assuming the woman she'd called actually sent someone. Assuming they could get here without being intercepted. Assuming a lot of things. Roy made more coffee. You want to tell me what this is really about? Ava hesitated, then decided he'd earned it. 3 years ago, my convoy was hit in Afghanistan. Most of my unit died. The ones who didn't were hunted down and killed. Now someone's trying to finish the job. Why? Because we saw something we weren't supposed to see. What? $20 million, and the people who stole it. Roy whistled low. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of bodies. You know who's behind it? Yeah. A man named Victor Aldrich runs a private military company. Connected. Powerful. Untouchable. Nobody's untouchable. He's close. Wish Roy leaned back. You planning to take him down? If I live long enough. And if you don't? Ava looked at Sam, unconscious on the couch, then back at Roy. Then he wins, and everyone who died for nothing stays dead for nothing. Roy nodded slowly. Well, can't have that. An hour passed, then another. Ava kept checking the window, watching for headlights. Sam woke up once, drank some water, and passed out again. Roy cleaned his shotgun and didn't ask more questions. At the 2-hour 50 mark, Ava heard engines. She moved to the window and saw headlights coming up the road. 2 vehicles. SUVs black. No markings. That your ride? Roy asked. I hope so. The SUVs stopped in front of the cabin. Doors opened and 4 people got out. 3 men, 1 woman. The woman was in her 40s, lean and hard-edged, wearing tactical gear that had seen use. She walked up to the cabin door and knocked. Ava opened it. The woman looked her over. You look like hell, Mercer. Good to see you too, Bishop. Angela Bishop had been a contractor in Afghanistan, working logistics and transport for units operating off the grid. She and Ava had crossed paths a dozen times, and Bishop had pulled her out of a bad situation once. They weren't friends, but they weren't enemies either. Where's Reyes? Bishop asked. Ava pointed to the couch.
Bishop's team moved in, two of them lifting Sam carefully and carrying him to the first SUV. Bishop turned to Roy. "You the one who called this in?" "Nope," Roy said. "Just the one who kept them alive." Bishop pulled out a roll of cash and handed it to him. "For your trouble." Roy looked at the money, then handed it back. "Keep it. Just do me a favor and make sure they finish what they started." Bishop nodded and pocketed the cash. She turned to Ava. "Let's move." Ava followed her to the second SUV. As they pulled away, she looked back at the cabin and saw Roy standing in the doorway, shotgun over his shoulder, watching them go. She didn't know his story, didn't know why he'd helped, but she was alive because of it. The drive took 3 hours. Bishop didn't say much, and Ava didn't push. When they finally stopped, it was outside a warehouse on the outskirts of Richmond. Bishop's team moved Sam inside, and Ava followed. The warehouse had been converted into something between a safe house and an operations center. Computers, secure comms, medical supplies. Bishop's people got Sam onto a cot and started an IV. A medic checked his vitals, redressed his wound, and gave him something for the pain. Bishop led Ava to a back room with a table, a couple of chairs, and a laptop. "Sit." Ava sat. Bishop opened the laptop and pulled up a file. "I've been tracking the situation since you called. Fort Garrison's a war zone. 12 dead. Hale's alive but in custody." "Custody? Whose?" "Federal marshals. He's being held on charges of treason, conspiracy, and about 6 other things I can't pronounce." Ava's stomach dropped. "That's bullshit." "Maybe, but someone high up signed the warrant, and someone higher up is making sure it sticks." "Aldrich." "That'd be my guess." Bishop pulled up another file. Photos, documents, financial records. "I've been digging into Aldrich since you mentioned his name. He's dirty. Really dirty. But he's also smart. Every transaction's got 3 layers of shell companies. Every contract's got plausible deniability. He doesn't leave fingerprints. There has to be something. There is. But it's not enough. Not to bring him down in court." "Then what do we do?" Bishop leaned back. "We don't go to court. We go public. You give me everything you know, I'll make sure it gets to people who can't be bought. Journalists, activists, people who make noise." Ava shook her head. "That'll take time. And while we're waiting, Aldrich will bury us." "You got a better idea?" Ava thought about it. The money, the convoy, the ambush. Aldrich had orchestrated it all, but he'd needed people on the ground to execute it. People like Garrett, people like Driscoll. And if Driscoll was still alive, he was the weak link. "We find Driscoll," Ava said. "We make him talk, and we record every word." Bishop raised an eyebrow. "You think he'll cooperate?" "I think he's scared, and scared people make mistakes. Ortiz is already in Bogota looking for him. Then we help her. We go there, we find him, and we get him to flip." Bishop considered it. "That's a long shot. It's the only shot we have." Bishop stood up. "I'll make some calls. If Ortiz has a lead, we can be in Bogota by tomorrow night. But Mercer, you need to understand something. If this goes sideways, we're not getting a second chance. Aldrich will know we're coming, and he'll be ready. He's been ready since the day he tried to kill us. Didn't work then. Won't work now." Bishop almost smiled. "You always this stubborn?" "Only when people try to kill me." By morning, Bishop had secured transport. A private flight out of a regional airport, no manifests, no questions. Sam was stable enough to travel, though the medic warned he needed rest and observation. Ava didn't care. They didn't have time for rest. The flight to Bogota took 6 hours. Ava spent most of it staring out the window, watching the landscape shift from green to brown to the sprawling chaos of the city. Bishop spent it on secure comms, coordinating with Ortiz, running down leads. When they landed, it was late afternoon. The heat hit Ava like a wall as she stepped off the plane. Bishop's team had a vehicle waiting, another SUV, this one armored. They drove through the city, past markets and high-rises and slums stacked on top of each other. Ortiz met them at a hotel in the business district. She looked tired but sharp, eyes moving constantly. "Got a location," she said without preamble. "Driscoll's working security for a guy named Esteban Ruiz. Runs a logistics company that's definitely not just logistics. He's holed up in a compound outside the city. Guarded. Fortified. Getting in won't be easy. We don't need easy, Ava said. We just need in. Ortiz pulled up a map on her tablet. There's a service entrance on the west side, used by supply trucks. If we can get a vehicle past the gate, we can get inside. And then? Then we find Driscoll and convince him to talk. How? Bishop smiled. We ask nicely. They spent the rest of the day planning. Ortiz had acquired a delivery truck and uniforms that would pass a cursory inspection. The plan was simple. Drive in, locate Driscoll, extract him, and get out before anyone noticed. Simple, but not easy. They moved at dusk. Ava rode in the back of the truck with Bishop and two of her team. Sam stayed behind at the hotel, still recovering. Ortiz drove, and one of Bishop's men rode shotgun. The compound was 20 minutes outside the city, surrounded by walls and cameras. Ortiz pulled up to the gate and handed the guard a clipboard with fake delivery orders. He checked it, checked the truck, and waved them through. They drove to the service area and parked. Ava and Bishop climbed out, moving like they belonged there. No one challenged them. They slipped into the main building through a side door and started searching. The compound was bigger than it looked from outside. Offices, storage rooms, living quarters. Ava moved through it methodically, checking faces, listening for voices. After 10 minutes, she found him. Paul Driscoll. Bigger than she remembered, grayer, but unmistakable. He was sitting in a break room, drinking coffee, alone. Ava stepped inside and closed the door. Driscoll looked up. His face went white. Doc, he said. Paul. He started to stand, but Bishop appeared behind Ava, gun drawn. Sit. He sat. Ava pulled out a chair and sat across from him. We need to talk. I've got nothing to say to you. That's funny, because you've got a lot to say to Victor Aldrich. Driscoll's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. The convoy, the money, the ambush. You were there. You helped set it up. You're crazy. Maybe. But I'm also right. Bishop stepped closer. Here's how this works. You tell us everything. Who planned it? Who paid for it? Who gave the orders? And we make sure you don't end up like Captain Lowe. Driscoll's eyes darted to the door. You can't protect me. We can't, Ava said. But we can make sure Aldrich goes down. And when he does, you're not the target anymore. Driscoll was quiet for a long moment. Then he laughed, bitter, hollow. You really think you can touch him? He's got senators in his pocket, generals. He's untouchable. Everyone keeps saying that, Ava said. But here's the thing, Paul. You're not. And right now, you're the one sitting in a room with us. So you've got a choice. Help us, or we walk away and let Aldrich know you're talking. I'm not talking. You are now. Bishop pulled out a recorder and set it on the table. Start from the beginning. Driscoll stared at it, then at Ava. Then he started talking. He told them everything. How Aldrich had approached him 2 months before the convoy, how the plan had been to eliminate the informant and make it look like an enemy attack, how Captain Lowe had been paid to leak the route, how Garrett and his team had been positioned to extract specific people Aldrich wanted alive, and leave the rest to die. Why keep some of us alive? Ava asked. Insurance, in case something went wrong. If anyone started asking questions, Aldrich could point to survivors and say, see, it was just bad luck. But then we disappeared. Yeah. And that made him nervous. He didn't know if you'd taken something, proof, evidence, so he sent Garrett to find out. And when Garrett couldn't, he escalated. Ava leaned forward. Who gave the final order? To kill us? Driscoll hesitated, then quietly, Aldrich. Directly. Bishop stopped the recording. That's enough. They got Driscoll out of the compound the same way they'd come in, through the service entrance, hidden in the truck. No one stopped them. By the time Ruiz's people realized he was missing, they were already gone. Back at the hotel, Bishop uploaded the recording to a secure server and sent copies to 3 different journalists, 2 congressional investigators, and a federal prosecutor she trusted. Within an hour, the story started breaking. News outlets picked it up, social media exploded, and Victor Aldrich's name was suddenly everywhere. Ava watched it unfold on a laptop screen, the headlines scrolling past. Defense contractor linked to Afghan convoy massacre. Senator calls for investigation into Aldrich's company. Whistleblower alleges DOD cover-up. Bishop stood beside her. It's working. It's starting, Ava corrected. Aldrich won't go down easy. No, but he'll go down. Ava's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. You just made a very powerful enemy. She showed it to Bishop. Aldrich? Bishop asked. Or someone close to him. Another text came through. This one was different. A photo. Taken from a distance, but clear enough. It showed Ava and Bishop in the hotel lobby. The timestamp was 10 minutes ago. He knows where we are, Ava said. Bishop's expression hardened. We move. Now. They grabbed Sam and their gear and left through a back exit. Bishop's team had a second safe house across the city, but as they drove, Ava couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every car that followed too long, every shadow that moved wrong. They reached the safe house, a nondescript apartment in a residential building, and locked down. Bishop posted guards at the exits and checked the security feeds. Everything looked clear. But at midnight, Ava's phone buzzed again. Another message. This time just 2 words. You're next. Ava stared at the screen. 2 words. Simple. Final. You're next. Bishop was already moving, barking orders into her radio. Her team scrambled, checking windows, locking doors, pulling weapons. Sam sat up on the couch, still groggy but alert enough to know something was wrong. What's happening? He asked. They found us, Ava said. How? Does it matter? Bishop crossed to her. We can't stay here. They're coming. But where do we go? Somewhere public, somewhere Aldrich can't move without witnesses. Ava thought fast. Public meant exposure. It also meant safety in numbers. The congressional hearing. He's testifying next week, right? 3 days from now. Then we go to Washington. We show up. We make sure he can't run. Bishop shook her head. That's suicide. He'll have security everywhere, federal protection. You won't get within 100 yards of him. I don't need to get close. I just need to be there when the truth comes out. The truth's already out. We leaked the recordings. We leaked Driscoll's testimony. That's not the same as putting Aldrich under oath in front of cameras and making him answer for it. Bishop considered that. You want to force his hand. I want to make him sweat. And then I want to watch him fall. Sam stood up, steadying himself against the couch. I'm coming with you. You can barely walk. I can walk enough. Ava looked at him, bruised, bandaged, exhausted, and saw the same determination she felt. They'd started this together. They'd finish it together. Fine, she said. But if you pass out, I'm leaving you behind. Deal. They left Bogota before dawn. Bishop arranged another private flight, this time directly to a regional airport outside D.C. The flight was tense and quiet. Ava spent it watching the sun rise over the clouds, thinking about the last 3 years. All the running, all the hiding, all the nights wondering if she'd wake up to find someone standing over her bed with a gun. It was almost over. One way or another. They landed in Virginia at noon. Bishop had another safe house lined up, a townhouse in Arlington, nondescript and anonymous. They holed up there, and Bishop's team started prepping. Ortiz joined them that evening, flying in from Bogota with more intel. Aldrich knows we're coming, Ortiz said, spreading files across the kitchen table. He's hired extra security, private contractors, the kind that don't ask questions. How many? Bishop asked. At least 20, maybe more. And the hearing? Still on. Senate Armed Services Committee. 10 a.m., Hart Building. Public galleries open, but you'll need ID to get in. We'll get in, Ava said. Ortiz looked at her. You sure about this? Once you're in that room, there's no walking away. Aldrich will see you, so will everyone else. Good. I want him to see me. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. Bishop's team ran security protocols, mapped routes, identified exits. Ava and Sam went over their statements, making sure every detail was airtight. Ortiz kept digging, pulling more evidence, building a case that couldn't be ignored. The night before the hearing, Ava couldn't sleep. She sat in the townhouse's small living room, staring at the television as news anchors dissected the scandal. Aldrich's face was everywhere. His company's stock had tanked. Senators were calling for investigations. The DOD had launched an internal review. But Aldrich himself had stayed silent, holed up in his estate, surrounded by lawyers and security. Sam wandered in, a glass of water in his hand. "You should rest." "Can't." "Yeah, me neither." He sat down beside her. They watched the news in silence for a while. Then Sam said, "You think this will actually work?" "It has to." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I've got." Sam nodded. "For what it's worth, I'm glad we're doing this, even if it goes sideways." "Why?" "Because I'm tired of being dead." Ava understood that. She was tired of it too. Tired of hiding, tired of pretending, tired of being someone else. Tomorrow, she'd be herself again. And if that got her killed, at least she'd die standing. Morning came too fast. Bishop's team moved them in 2 vehicles, taking separate routes to avoid tails. The Hart Senate office building was a fortress. Police, federal agents, metal detectors, cameras. Getting in would be hard. Getting out might be impossible. They parked 3 blocks away and walked. Ava wore a plain suit Bishop had provided, her hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked like a bureaucrat. Forgettable. That was the point. Sam walked beside her, moving better than he had 2 days ago, but still favoring his left side. Bishop and Ortiz flanked them, scanning the crowd. The streets around the Capitol were packed. Protesters, journalists, lobbyists, tourists. Everyone wanted a piece of the scandal. They reached the building's entrance and joined the line for the public gallery. Security was tight. Ava handed over her ID, a fake, but a good one, and held her breath as the officer scanned it. He looked at the screen, looked at her face, then waved her through. Sam got the same treatment. No problems. They climbed the stairs to the hearing room on the 3rd floor. The gallery was already half full, people jockeying for seats. Ava found a spot near the back with a clear view of the witness table. Sam sat beside her. Bishop and Ortiz stayed near the exits. At exactly 10 a.m., the senators filed in. 12 of them seated behind a long curved desk at the front of the room. Cameras lined the walls. Reporters packed the press section. The chairman, a silver-haired man in his 70s, called the hearing to order. This committee convenes to examine allegations of misconduct involving Sentinel Global and its CEO, Victor Aldrich. Mr. Aldrich, please come forward. The side door opened and Aldrich walked in. He looked exactly like his photos, lean, sharp-featured, impeccably dressed. His expression was calm, almost bored, like this was a minor inconvenience. He took his seat at the witness table, flanked by 3 lawyers, and placed his hands on the table. The chairman began with procedural questions: name, occupation, tenure at Sentinel Global. Aldrich answered each one in a flat, measured tone. No emotion. No hesitation. Then the chairman shifted gears. Mr. Aldrich, this committee has received testimony alleging that your company facilitated illegal operations in Afghanistan, including the theft of $20 million and the orchestrated ambush of a U.S. convoy. How do you respond to these allegations? Aldrich didn't blink. They're false. You deny any involvement? Completely. We have a sworn statement from Paul Driscoll, a former contractor who claims you personally ordered the ambush. Mr. Driscoll is a liar and a criminal. He's facing charges in 3 countries. His testimony is worthless. One of the senators leaned forward. We also have financial records showing that a shell company you controlled moved $18 million through offshore accounts during the time frame in question. Can you explain that? Those records are fabricated. I've never operated any shell company. You're saying the documents are fake? I'm saying someone is trying to frame me. Ava's hands tightened into fists. She'd known he'd deny it, but hearing him lie so smoothly, so confidently, made her blood boil. The chairman continued. Mr. Aldrich, this committee has subpoenaed your company's financial records, email correspondence, and personnel files. If what you're saying is true, those records will exonerate you. Will you cooperate fully with this investigation? Of course. And if we find evidence to the contrary? Aldrich smiled, thin, cold. You won't. The hearing continued for another hour. Senators asked questions. Aldrich deflected. His lawyers objected. Nothing stuck. He was too prepared, too polished, too protected. Ava felt the frustration building. This wasn't working. He was going to walk. And once he did, he'd come for them. Hard. Then one of the senators, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a sharper voice, said, Mr. Aldrich, I'd like to enter into the record a recording obtained by investigators. This is a conversation between you and Paul Driscoll, recorded 3 weeks before the convoy ambush. Aldrich's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. The senator nodded to a technician, and the recording played over the room's speakers. Aldrich's voice, unmistakable. The informant needs to disappear. No traces. No witnesses. Driscoll's voice. What about the medics? Aldrich. Collateral. If they see something, they're a problem. Handle it. Driscoll. And if they survive? Aldrich. They won't. The room went silent. Aldrich's lawyers erupted, shouting objections, demanding the recording be struck from the record. The chairman banged his gavel. Order, order! The senator wasn't done. Mr. Aldrich, is that your voice? Aldrich's jaw tightened. That recording is inadmissible. It was obtained illegally. That's not what I asked. Is that your voice? I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Senators argued over procedure. Aldrich sat there, stone-faced, while his lawyers tried to contain the damage. Ava stood up. She didn't plan it. She just moved. Down the aisle toward the front of the room. Security started toward her, but she spoke before they could grab her. My name is Ava Mercer. I was declared dead 3 years ago after the convoy Victor Aldrich just lied about. The room went silent again. Every camera turned to her. I was there, she continued, her voice steady. I saw the bodies. I pulled people out of burning vehicles. And I've spent the last 3 years running because Victor Aldrich wanted me dead. Not because I'm a threat. Because I'm a witness. One of the senators leaned forward. Miss Mercer, you're under oath? I'll swear to anything you want. Every word I'm saying is true. Aldrich's lawyers were shouting now, but the chairman waved them down. Let her speak. Ava stepped closer to the witness table. You told Driscoll we wouldn't survive, but we did. And now you're sitting here lying to Congress because you think you're untouchable. You're not. Aldrich finally looked at her, really looked. And for the first time she saw something in his face, not fear, not anger, recognition. He knew he'd lost. I have nothing to say to you, he said. You don't have to. Your voice is already on the record. Security moved in then, gently but firmly pulling Ava back toward the gallery. She didn't resist. She'd said what she needed to say. Sam stood as she returned to her seat, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen in years. Pride. The hearing dissolved into chaos. The chairman recessed the session. Aldrich and his lawyers left through a side exit surrounded by security, but the damage was done. The recording was public. Ava's testimony was public, and by the time the sun set, every news outlet in the country was running with it. Bishop met them outside the building. That was reckless. That was necessary, Ava said. You just painted a target on your back. I've had one for 3 years. At least now I'm not hiding. They moved to a hotel downtown, public, visible, full of witnesses. Ava didn't want safety anymore. She wanted exposure. If Aldrich came for her, everyone would see. Over the next 48 hours, everything accelerated. The DOJ opened a criminal investigation. The FBI raided Sentinel Global's headquarters. Aldrich was arrested at his estate, charged with conspiracy, fraud, murder for hire, and half a dozen other felonies. His lawyers tried to get him released on bail, but the judge denied it. Too much of a flight risk. Hale was released from custody, all charges dropped. He called Ava the day he got out. You did it, he said. We did it. No, this was you and Reyes. You didn't run. You fought. We didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You made the right one. She didn't know what to say to that, so she just said, thanks. A week later, Ava stood outside Redfield General for the first time since the shooting. The building looked the same. The parking lot was full. Life had moved on. She walked inside and took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The ER looked different in daylight, cleaner, quieter. Sharon was at the nurse's station, reviewing charts. She looked up as Ava approached. Mercer, Sharon said, surprised. You're alive. Barely. We heard what happened, saw you on the news, you're famous. I'm tired, Sharon smiled. Fair. She set down her clipboard. What are you doing here? I wanted to see how the patients are doing. The ones from the crane collapse. All recovered, discharged. You saved their lives. Ava nodded. Good. Dr. Callahan wants to talk to you. He's been asking about you for days. I'm not coming back. He knows. He just wants to talk. Ava found Callahan in his office, buried in paperwork. He looked up when she knocked. Mercer, he said, standing. Come in. She sat down across from him. He studied her for a long moment, then said, I owe you an apology. For what? For not trusting you, for questioning what you did that day. You saved 7 people and all I did was make you feel like a criminal. You didn't know who I was. I should have known it didn't matter. You did the work. That's what counts. Ava didn't know how to respond. She'd spent so long being judged, being doubted, that hearing someone acknowledge what she'd done felt strange. I've been following the news, Callahan continued. What you went through, what you're still going through, I can't imagine. I'm managing. Are you? I'm here. That's something. Callahan leaned back. I talked to the board. They want to offer you your job back. Full reinstatement. No questions. Ava shook her head. I can't. Why not? Because I'm not the same person I was 6 months ago, and I don't think I can go back to pretending I am. Callahan nodded slowly. What will you do? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She left the hospital and walked to her car. Sam was waiting, leaning against the hood. How'd it go? He asked. They offered me my job back. And? I said no. Why? Because I don't want to hide anymore. I want to do something that matters. Sam smiled. Like what? Like making sure what happened to us doesn't happen to anyone else. 2 months later, Ava and Sam stood in front of a small office in Alexandria. The sign on the door read, Witness Protection Initiative, Independent Advocacy. Inside, the space was modest. 3 desks, a conference table, filing cabinets, a coffee maker that was already on its last legs. Bishop and Ortiz were there, along with 2 other former contractors who'd worked with them in Bogota. Hale had helped secure funding through a grant he'd pulled from contacts who owed him favors. It wasn't much, but it was a start. You sure about this? Sam asked. No, Ava said, but I'm doing it anyway. Their mission was simple. Help people who'd seen too much, who knew too much, who'd been targeted for speaking up. People like them. People the system had failed. The first case came within a week. A whistleblower from a defense contractor, threatened into silence, terrified for her life. Ava and Sam worked with her for 2 months, gathering evidence, coordinating with investigators, keeping her safe. When the case finally broke, the contractor was shut down, and the whistleblower walked away alive. It wasn't justice, but it was something. 6 months in, Ava was sitting at her desk when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Mercer, she said. It's Mora, Daniel Mora. From the hospital. It took her a second to place the name. Then she remembered. The construction foreman, the one who'd recognized her. I remember, she said. How are you? Good. Recovered. Back to work. He paused. I saw what you've been doing, the advocacy work. I wanted to say thank you. For what? For not running, for standing up. You saved my life twice, once in Kandahar, once in Redfield, and now you're saving other people. That means something. Ava's throat tightened. I'm just doing what I can. That's more than most. When the call ended, she sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Then she looked around the office, at Sam reviewing case files, at Bishop coordinating security for a client, at Ortiz tracking down leads. This wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't safe. It wasn't easy. But it was hers. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was running. She felt like she was moving forward. 3 years after the convoy, Ava Mercer walked into a Senate hearing room to testify at Victor Aldrich's trial. He'd fought every charge, hired the best lawyers money could buy, and dragged the case out for as long as possible. But the evidence was overwhelming. The recordings, the financial trails, the testimony from Driscoll, from Ava, from Sam, from a dozen other witnesses. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Aldrich showed no emotion as the judge read the sentence. 25 years, no parole. Ava watched him led away in handcuffs and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not relief, just the quiet certainty that it was over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Ava ignored most of them, but one question cut through the noise. "Ms. Mercer, what's next for you?" She stopped, turned, looked directly into the camera. "I'm going back to work," she said.
"There are a lot of people out there who need help, and I'm not done yet." Sam stood beside her, and together they walked through the crowd, past the cameras, past the questions, into the sunlight. They'd been underestimated, dismissed, written off as collateral damage, but they'd survived. They'd fought back, and they'd won. Not because they were perfect, not because they had all the answers, but because when it mattered most, they chose to stand instead of run. And that made all the difference. Ava didn't know what tomorrow would bring. More cases, more threats, more people who needed someone to believe them. But she'd be there, because she'd learned something in the last 3 years. The people who survive aren't the ones who hide. They're the ones who fight. And she wasn't done fighting, not even close.